Make no attempt to reload your device. You are now entering the Hellhole.
We're live, pal. Are we good? Everything working? Slight snafu. We're here now. We're back in the hellhole. Welcome back. I'm internet sensation and world's greatest streamer, Mick Lucifer. Slight exaggeration. We're back on my desk. What do I have before you but a couple of things from my personal archive? We've been, I guess we've just done the thing with like Disney trading cards, Disney 100 Wonders trading cards. It's in the archive right now if you go check it out. I was opening packs of cards, and now I have these old Marvel things, which because I was dabbling in Marvel Snap, and this is kind of like, you know, in 1995 this was Marvel Snap. It was called Marvel Overpower, the card game. I got 2 boxes here. I got these, I think, in 96. Wow. Timing. Timing is everything. So, yeah, I'm gonna bust into these because I haven't looked at them in, like, I don't know how long. So we got Clobber in Time with the Thing. These are the good guys. Deadly Foes with Sabretooth. They're the bad guys. Let's get into it. Let's see what's cooking. It's kind of, I think MKM on the Discord's calling it the trading card arc. I like it. So we're just going to check these out because I haven't looked at them in so long, and it's kind of, it kind of feeds into what we've been doing because I kind of, Marvel Snap isn't brilliant as a game, but, you know, I like seeing pictures of my favorite superheroes and things like that, and that was really what got me into this Overpower deal because these sort of materialized in the card store one day. And it was all new and exciting because at that stage, these kinds of playable card games, like obviously you had Magic the Gathering. That was like the big one. It still is one of the big ones. But this kind of thing was very new and fresh. I've been into trading cards for superheroes for a long time. It was like NBA was the big one and superheroes were the other big thing. The appeal was always, obviously the artwork is of great appeal, but also before the internet, superhero trading cards were a great source of information. It was a great way to find out, like, stats, information about characters, first appearances, real names, group affiliation, you know, like all of that. They would have the little power charts. We'll check those out sometime. That's not what this is about, but that was the kind of thing that was good. And then you get a little bio. It would tell you some interesting details about, you know, like what the characters' key stories were. You'd get information about stories and stuff, because you got to remember, like, back issues were subject to availability and cost, and you didn't have the internet, so you were extracting information from wherever you could, and trading cards almost replaced, like in the case of Marvel, it replaced the official handbook to the Marvel Universe, which was obviously another good source of information as a kid. Plus it's just fun. Like, you can't underestimate the appeal of just checking out your favorite characters and seeing like a nice image representing them. And a bit of information. That's all a good fan really needs. But these were like I said, a playing card game. there's like a little rule book. Okay, like full disclosure, I never played this game. The rules were just, it was too much like work. It's a nice little booklet, and I'm sure they lay out the rules pretty well. I think I tried once, but it was just like, for me it was a little bit boring, and it was a little too much like homework. And I did for a little while kind of regret these, but they were very exciting at the time. It's questionable whether I would maintain that, so let's get into this. This is like, so the first character, obviously, it's the Clobber in Time thing, so of course you gotta have the thing. These are the character cards, so they do give you like some stats that are obviously relevant to the game. Strength, fighting, energy. I think there are other categories as well. They've all got the same card back, as you would expect, I guess, of a card game. I mean, I never really got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon or any of those things. I don't know if these were played face down. Are you gonna activate my trap card? I don't know what's going on with these things. But, you know, look. What I will say is that I kind of got swept up in the novelty of these things, and I was excited by some of the then cutting-edge CG art. It has not, it hasn't really aged that well, but this is, you know, this is okay. I don't know. They're not my favorite card series. There are better series. Maybe I'll dig some of those out sometime. So I guess, like, these are the cards that you would play with, your abilities and stuff. I mean, that's a nice dynamic shot of the thing. They say you can judge an artist by their thing. Not like that. Come on. Mind out of the gutter, guys. No, artists tend to draw the thing a little differently. There's different textures to the rocks. Depth of the rock, you know, how rigid, how protruding they are. The brow, the face is a big factor, whether or not the teeth are very visible. The thing is, like, not a straightforward character. And obviously there's a lot of, with all the little sort of plates of rock, he can be a very distinct character, artist to artist. So I don't know that these are the best renderings of the thing, but, you know. The thing was one of my favorites, obviously. Because the Fantastic Four rule, as we all know. There's another nice little one. I guess you can avoid attacks. So you can see, like the little skills, avoid one attack. I guess there are things a bit like that in Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap is simplified, and I think, you know, going back to the fact that I never played this game, I never really learned the rules. I think the simplifications that Marvel Snap utilizes is a good thing. Who is that? This green dude getting like bear hugged by thing. It kind of, at a glance, it's like a green version of the wingless wizard, but maybe it's like a Rigelian dude? I don't know who that is. What do you get? Immediately discard one placed universe card. It's too much, man. It's not that exciting, but let's check out. Let's see the characters that made the cut. War Machine. There's a good one. I dig that. War Machine's a good... Hang on. Okay, so Thing has Strength 8. War Machine has Strength 7. I used to like... a lot of the cards would use a 7 scale. And if you've ever visited Secret Wars on Infinite Earths, the comic book Fight Club, you know that I use my own version of the 7 stat system. War Machine's pretty cool, and I feel like War Machine... I mean, this isn't... There's a bit of the computer coloring of the time. This, again, I think I mentioned, so this series, these came out in 1995. I think I got them maybe 96. I still remember the day. I think I got one of them because they were pretty expensive for the time. A lot more than a pack of cards that I would usually get. Like a pack of cards was like a couple of bucks, few bucks. These were like 30 bucks. Obviously you get a lot in them and there's a game element. But I still remember the day running into the card store late in the evening, grabbing one of these, excited. I think I got one for Christmas or something as well, so I got the two of them. I don't know. Yeah, silly. War Machine's a good one to have. But, yeah, there's a lot of, like, CG elements to these cards. That's a pretty nice looking War Machine. I like that one. That's, like, just a dramatic pose with a bit of drama around it, a bit of, like, airbrushed fire, and it's got some good reflections on the armor. And I always like this would be probably my favorite style of War Machine, the sort of, it's more of a white and black sort of rendering. obviously very metallic, but it's not all silver or something like that. You know, I like the dark light contrast. And this was going on like in the animated series around that time. I think that was 94 was the first series of part of the Marvel Action Hour cartoons. It was Fantastic Four and Iron Man, which pretty great. And again, I go back to that bogus theory that Iron Man was nothing until that 2008 Iron Man movie with Robert Downey Jr. Just not true. Just not true. Not in comics, not in anything. Iron Man was legit. Here you go. Here's more of that sort of like silver style. Reminds me a bit of the suit that Rhodey steals. What is that, Mark II, Mark III? The silver suit in the movie. Not as keen on that. I like the black-white contrast. I think that's the definitive War Machine to me. This is another nice one. I don't know. They don't credit the artists from what I can see. It's a little disappointing. That's a nice rendering of War Machine. Again, the good sort of dark light contrast, the more of like a white silver, and then the sort of like gunmetal black gray. A little bit of drama with like energy in the sort of gauntlet repulsor ray kind of deal. You got some little rockets coming out of the forearm in the foreground. Good bit of depth in the image. Bit of a generic background. Sort of a mountain. Maybe he's up against the Mandarin or Fin Fang Foom or something like that. You know, I would have been thinking of like 91 issues of Iron Man when Jim Rhodes was filling in as Iron Man and he had to fight Fin Fang Foom. That was a pretty good one. It's moving on. So you can kind of tell, like, you get your character card and then you get some of their abilities. I don't know if you can only play... I guess you can only play the abilities if you have the character active. I don't know the rules at all. I'm not going to even pretend. Here's Spider-Woman, the Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman. I forget if she's going to be in the film soon. So get a lot of that, kids. You're ahead of the curve now. There's supposed to be a Spider-Woman or is it Madam Web? Julia Carpenter, this version of Spider-Woman, I think she was the second Spider-Woman. She does become the new Madam Web somewhere in like the 2010s. So that factors in somehow. She's kind of she's all right. Her and War Machine were in that Iron Man animated series, and I guess they were Force Works around this time in the comics. Sort of like an extension of the West Coast Avengers, all that kind of stuff. A lot of hair on that one. Not my favorite rendering, if I'm honest. I feel like you're emphasizing the wrong things about Spider-Woman in this one. Am I having issues with focus here? I might be. This could be like a Medusa card or something, or even the most famous redhead would be Jean Grey. At least you're getting some of the costume. You've got the mask. Always seems loosely inspired by Spidey's black costume, but yeah, not a great rendering of it, that one. This artist has done a better job. I wonder if this is also the guy who did some of those War Machine ones. Could be a similar quality, but yeah, more of a hero shot. Not known necessarily for her superhuman strength, but she's doing superhero kinds of things. With this Spider-Woman, she had like psi webs, like psionic powers, mental projections. She could make a web sort of thing. Nice rendering, at least the costume. More of like a strawberry blonde kind of deal on this. Sometimes characters would oscillate. The coloring wouldn't always be consistent, so I don't know. I guess I don't know what I think of. I guess I think of her more blonde than red. I'm not really sure. Gotta dig out some comics, but that's a nice one. Here's a nice one. You get more of a Spider-Woman style pose, sort of swinging on the psionic webs. You can see the pink webs. That's kind of her deal. A little bit Jean Grey. Jean Grey would do that. Particularly, I always think of her doing that sort of like late 80s, like X Factor, with that sort of like bubblegum psionic powers. A little bit similar to that with the red hair and the rendering, but Spider-Woman a little bit more agile, maybe. Just sort of cribbing on the Spider-Man deal. She's not the original Spider-Woman, but she's got a little bit of that going on. Let's carry on. Man, sign of the times. Sorry, sign of the times. There's Thor. That's the state of Thor in 1995. I'm sure it got worse. I know it got worse. It did get worse. But the little like yellow gimmicks here in the middle, I don't know. It's just not quite coming together, and this rendering is maybe not my favorite looking Thor. The details are a little bit rough there. The general gist of it's right, though. The silhouette's almost there. He's almost got like a Beta Ray Bill sort of shoulder pad going on. The gold boots. Yeah, I don't know. It gets worse for Thor. That's one of those famous like mid-90s design faux pas. Here you go. More of the dodgy style costume, but not too bad. This rendering, you know, like trying to get the hammer in with a bit of lightning for drama. Some nice cape action. Hopefully we're getting this in focus. It looks like it might be a little bit dodgy. I'm doing my best here. Is this thrilling? Is this what you're tuning in for? This is authentic retro content, friends. Get on board. Here we go. Classic style Thor. You gotta like that. Mystic Uru metal, the hammer. He's bringing the hammer down, slamming it down. Big drama. Classic design. I like that. Whatever those circles are on the torso, that just works a little bit better than those sort of generic yellow squares. Classic style helmet, hair, capes looking billowing. The classic boots with sort of like the yellow wraps, big black knee pads. It just looks cool, man. What more do you need? That's the good stuff. That's Thor. And I wonder again, is that the same artist that did that one of those War Machines and maybe the Spider-Woman I liked? There's a similar quality in some of that sort of finish and the line work. Good structure. There's like a good structure to like the face and the musculature. See, this is like delving more into that deranged sort of 90s stuff. I don't know what's going on here. It's the bad costume. He's looking, I don't know what. I can't reach any kind of personal connection with this man. He's screaming like a maniac into the night. There's lightning. At least it's something. He's just, I don't know. This doesn't say Thor to me. This is generic screaming post image, you know, super guy, whatever. Do you like a bit of comedy with your superheroes? Here's a Venom card. That's going to get the kids excited in 1995. It's probably going to get them excited now. There's just something about that Venom. The kids go wild, but he's chugging down some hot dogs. Hans Moleman has been kicked to the curb. He's busted a hip. Venom has just taken all the wieners, sucking them down with that big tongue. Don't be like that about it. Come on. That's not what I mean. You know that's not what I mean. Yeah, so I don't know what these universe cards do. 60 adds +1 to strength. So I presume when you're playing this, you're gonna have to have like a little notepad keeping track of your stats as well. So that's +1. You know, we saw that kind of thing in Marvel Snap. Another Spider-Woman. She's flinging a manhole like a frisbee. That's gonna get you +2 strength. Venom could have done that. What is it? And you, so +1 for the hot dog cart, +2 for the manhole cover. Maybe that checks out. Manhole cover's pretty heavy. That's got some heft to it. I can roll with that. You get 2 of those. It is a card game, so think not of this as a double, but as another opportunity to increase your strength in your deck, in your hand. I don't know. I never played the game. I never really desired it that much. Check it out. The rampaging rhino kicking up the asphalt. I like that. Rhino is one of those classic villains that I dig. You gotta love a bit of Rhino. You got people here talking trash about Rhino. Forget it. Rhino's legit. Okay, he's just a big, strong guy in a cool suit. He's got the Rhino gimmicks on his head. What more do you need, man? He outpaces Spider-Man, so there's a little bit of challenge. And yes, Spidey gets the better of him most of the time, but that's cool. That's how it works, man. I don't want Rhino coming out on top. But it's nice too when he plays away sometimes. Sometimes he's up against the Hulk. He can scale up. That's what you want from a good villain. Just a good, honest gimmick. Rogue from the X-Men. That's a good one for 1995. She's chucking a tree. That's gonna give you 2 strength, but it's gonna cost you 7 whatevers. I don't know how this works. You get a couple of rogues. Another sign of the times. You get Colossus with a taxi cab. That's going to give you a +3 strength, but check it out. It's Colossus in his Acolyte gear. So Colossus joined Magneto's Acolytes in like, what, 93? And I guess that lasted for a few years. Maybe. Maybe it lasted one year, 2 years? I'm not sure, but this is the Acolyte costume. Fair enough. Again, not the most exciting. I mean, they're going for something. They're going for like the idea that he's hoisting it up, but I feel like whatever you're gaining in concept, you're losing in composition. It's a pretty unremarkable looking Colossus. Colossus looks great. Like, he's a great visually interesting character. He's living steel kind of thing. So not really exploiting it to the fullest. We got Abomination. So the good guy box does include some villainous cards, but I guess these are more about the objects. Maybe the universe cards are like about environment. You're picking things up. Cost you 8, but you get +1 strength. That doesn't seem very economical, and I don't quite understand it. If that's... I'm assuming 8 to use means that's the cost of it. I assume that, because I don't know the rules. Abomination should have a lower cost, because he's stronger. He's like Hulk tier. He can fling this stuff around no problem. Is it something to do with Abomination is too wild and unpredictable? I don't know. Another thing, this is one of those ones I think that's like a CG texture. He's got sort of a strange smear across him. It's less rocky. It's sort of like I don't know how I would describe that. It's like a speckled paint granite vibe or something. He's got a lamppost. 8 to use, but you get +2 strength. I don't know. I don't know how this works. Plenty of these universe cards. What is this? Training? Black Cat. She's had training, so I guess that's something. If you're checking this out, if you're live in the chat, if you're watching in the archive, and you know the rules and you know what these cards do or something, clue me in if you want, because I am mildly curious. 5 or less to use, +3 attack, is that... I guess is that like I don't know how this works, man. I got no idea. It's like, it's using the same logo, so does it cost 5, but you get 3? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Is there maybe there's 2 stats of like I just have no idea how this game works. It's kind of a mildly interesting Black Cat. It's kind of a strange pose. You're not really getting the best of anything in a pose like that. It's not a very glamorous pose. It's not quite a fully committed action pose. It's just sort of a strange contortion. This, to me, looks like another one of those... I think there's a CG element to this in the colors and the finished rendering. That's Sauron, obviously, the X-Men villain. I think it's relatively effective, though. That's not a bad one. The light highlight on his beak isn't too severe. Sometimes these things with like the airbrushed colors and stuff, they can start to look a little bad. I particularly don't like it when you get that sort of like 80s look. The colors, the highlights are like really dry. They're all really dry, summery sort of colors, and I tend to not enjoy that visually, aesthetically. But this is pretty good. Sauron's looking pretty happy with himself. Are we gonna do, what are we doing? We might get to the villain box as well. This is this a terrible idea? What am I doing here? This is like, I don't know, is this an interesting artifact? I've been playing Marvel Snap, I've been doing Disney trading cards. I'm all hopped up on trading cards lately. Like I've got full-blown nostalgia right now for trading cards, so this might not be the last time I go through something like this. Hopefully we'll keep it fresh, but check this out. Another artifact of 1995. This is Century. I don't really remember Century's deal, but he was in the Iron Man cartoon. He was in the Force Works comics. And he's like, I don't know, is he some sort of like ancient interdimensional traveler? He had that sort of vague spiritual new age element to him. He was kind of like a new age rock and roll Martian Manhunter vibe. There was something something like reminiscent of the Martian Manhunter for the Justice League or something like that. But he had that big axe. Although like in the cartoon, the axe was used for like opening portals and stuff. I think in the comics he used it as a weapon. I didn't really get into Force Works that much. I don't know what happened to Sentry. I think he went home or something. Maybe he died? I think he was like really old as well. He's like 100 years old or something. And I guess that's why he's called Sentry. I don't know. I don't remember much about Sentry's story. He's one of those characters where he sort of had an interesting like heavy metal look to him. He probably looked better than he was as a character though. He wasn't that interesting. So it's always a little bit tricky to get into it. Let's move on. That always struck me as one of the best cards. That's that mid-90s Iron Man. That's really cool. I like that design. That's the design that was in the cartoon and was the comic book look throughout the mid-90s at the very least. I mean, they used to update Iron Man's armor all the time in the comics. He'd have it for a while though. It wasn't quite like the films where he goes through suits of armor in like minutes. He would have periods of different armors. To me, this is one of the best ones. He's got like that sort of frowny face look to him, but it's kind of cool. I kind of like it. It's sort of, I guess it sort of evokes like an old medieval knight's faceplate as well, and that's the one. I think of that as when it would slide up a lot, although that probably happened earlier as well. That might even be like a 70s thing where the faceplate slides up to show Tony Stark underneath. But this is a great image. This might be some of that CG coloring. They've done very well. Obviously, like a metal suit lends itself to the sort of artificial nature of the CG coloring. So obviously that works pretty well. I like that. And it was cool. It's cool just to have like Iron Man and War Machine in the same set. This is like your starter pack. You would get booster packs, so you could get more characters and stuff, but I never really got that far. But that's a nice one. I like that. I guess Sauron is like the big deal for some reason. Because here he is again doing his hypno trance with like some sort of... They go into the Photoshop when they were doing this background, just whip up a swirl. I mean, it works for Sauron because he's got like the hypno. He can hypnotize people. He's a pterodactyl man who hypnotizes people. Why not, man? Why not? People seem to love Sauron. I think people like the idea of Sauron or the look of Sauron. I think it's the design. The design is what he lives and dies by. But Sauron, a tricky character, it seems like, to make stick beyond a few cool drawings. I guess, you know, it's that childhood element of like just dinosaurs are cool. I think it's a bit of that. He's a cool looking character though. That's a nice little card. I like seeing some good villains. Electro. Come on, legit Electro. This is what Electro looks like, okay, kids? Forget about like some kind of Dr. Manhattan wannabe. And like, I get it. Blue makes some sense for electricity, but this is Electro. He wears green and yellow. He's got a big crazy like star mask on his cowl. Deal with it or he will electrocute you. That's the cool shit right there. That's what I want to see when I see Electro. There's been a few tweaks to the design over the years. They're not too bad. Keep the mask though, or at least some version of it. I thought, I don't know who the first guy to do it was, but Terry Dodson was doing, when he did Marvel Knights Spider-Man, there was sort of like a static electricity element, and so the big flaps on the mask would sort of like stick to the sides of his head a bit, and there'd be a little bit of animation in how they appear, but like, I kind of like that. If you want to downplay it, you can keep it. I mean, that's not... If you can deal with Wolverine's mask, and like Wolverine's got the cachet to do it, then it's a step just to Electro. Is it a step too far? I don't think so. Give me visual superheroes. I mean, that's the misery of the movies. They don't give you the good visuals. That said, not all the visuals are winners. This is Bloody Mary, which was one of the personalities of Typhoid Mary. So I guess Bloody Mary had a lot of just like metal armor stuck to her. It's the mid-90s, man. What do you want? I guess that happened in sort of the early 90s. And I guess this was her more violent, aggressive persona. She had sort of like multiple personalities that she went through for a little while there. Ran up against, obviously, classic Daredevil villain, but she ran up against Spidey and I think Wolverine. There was a crazy Marvel Comics Presents story that I got some issues of when I was a kid, and it was sort of blowing my mind a little bit. I don't know that I was ready to be reading that kind of stuff. This is a very unremarkable rendering, I would say. I don't think the CG colors are really doing it a lot of favors. The face is a little bit whack. It's just not coming together. They love doing the big red hair. I don't know what that's about. It's not out of character, but yeah. Although I say that, big red hair, well, not for Black Widow. Black Widow is sort of a traditional redhead. She got some crazy expression going on there. It's like, I don't know who that reminds me of. It's not Ron Perlman, but if you want to be unkind. Classic gray bodysuit costume with the Avengers jacket. Well, a whole heap of the Avengers used to wear those like little bomber jackets in the 90s. I guess it gives Black Widow a little something extra, a little bit of extra visual. Why not? That seems like a good decision to me. That face is crazy. The hair's a little too severe for Black Widow. Not quite what I think of even in her short hair years, but not a bad one. Long shot. One of those X characters. I feel like you love him or you just don't care, and I'm a little bit more on the not caring side. I never really. The Mojo-verse was never my favorite thing in X-Men, and I guess Longshot always just seemed a little bit lame to me. He's lucky. He's got long hair. He's got the eye flash. I mean, did he have the eye flash before Cable? Maybe he did. I don't know. Not one of those characters that I had great affection for. Here's a character I did have a lot of affection for. Here's Archangel. I don't think he was back calling himself Angel yet, although this kind of looks like he's got the blue version of the... Is that the late 60s costume that he had for a while? Kind of that, yeah, that... Was it late 60s? I forget when that costume comes in, but it's the blue version, which is... I think that's cool. Why not? That's kind of nice. Good. It's not the best... depiction of him, but you do get like a little bit of at least the sense of flight. It's a vertical card, so I'm kind of cheating by turning it on its side. I think turning it on its side like this, it's not the most flattering anatomy. The head and shoulders aren't quite coming together. You can kind of it's a little less distracting here. It kind of works when it's vertical, but when it's like that, it just looks a little bit weird. I don't know. Probably not my favorite Archangel image, but it's okay. You gotta have some Spidey. Can you believe we went this far without much Spidey? There he is, just smacking down on a burglar or something, just dropping the big fist, swinging down, does whatever a spider can. Small eyes on this one. There's, I guess there's different schools of thought. Do you like a big eye or do you like a small eye? I was always more of a fan of like the big eyes. I like what Todd McFarlane did. My favorite Spidey artist was Eric Larson. And I feel like Eric Larson kind of took some of those McFarlane elements but twisted them a little bit more. I think there's better periods. Maybe earlier, but I'm not quite sure. Definitely, no, amazing. Amazing Spider-Man is probably the Larson that I like the most. Sort of like 89. Some of those issues were like blowing my mind. But nice to have a bit of a Spidey card in there. We got some more War Machine. This set, for whatever reason, was set on getting War Machine in there, which was cool because War Machine was a cool character. Rhodey goes out on his own. The lighting effects kind of downplay the contrast of the light dark, but you know, it's a big sort of showing off the strength of Iron Man and War Machine, because you got to remember that they can hoist with the best of them, throw down with Hulk or whoever, they're heavy hitters, so why not? I guess, are you getting 3 strength for these cards? There's a whole heap of them. If that, I don't know what these stats mean, but here's Loki anyway. Loki's coming back to Disney Plus sometime soon for more time traveling adventures. Pseudo Doctor Who is what it kind of plays like. Tom Hiddleston's version of Doctor Who. I don't know. It's not quite my Loki. I don't know that this is quite it either, though. I don't really think of him as like smashing, doing ground pounds or any of that kind of stuff. I don't know what he's doing here. Is that a statue of Odin, maybe, or something? Angry at Dad. That Loki's always up to something. Always cranky about something. The unloved son. Probably not my favorite card. I mean, aesthetics were such a big deal in the trading card scene, so some of these are more missed than hit, I would say. Cyber, the almost forgotten Wolverine villain. This guy was like a big deal real quick. He's the guy who breaks Wolverine's bone claws. They made a big deal of like, this is one of the few guys that Wolverine's afraid of. Which, you know, when you're reading comics in terms of like that characterization, that's a big deal. It's like Cyber and Proteus are the 2 guys that give Wolverine anxiety attacks. That's not what you really think of as Wolverine, so that's supposed to be a big deal. And I guess the big deal is like Cyber is covered in adamantium armor, and he's got these little claws that like have poison. The nails, it's like fingernails, not Wolverine style claws. It's fingernails, and he can poison you and stuff, and I guess that triggers hallucinations or weakness or something. I don't really know what to make of that background, but there's kind of like some green smoke. Maybe they're getting at the poison side of things, alluding to it with this sort of very vague background. That's not a bad like drawing though, and kind of hints at the size, but it gets across the metallic arms and the very basic costume. I don't know. Cyber's okay. He's not a character I'm desperate to see return. Very 90s, very much of the time. Kind of faded in the 90s. I think he came back in Wolverine Origins, the Daniel Way series. I think there was a brief comeback, but not anything anyone was too excited about. This is one of my favorite villains. Another classic from Stan and Jack, from the Jack Kirby Stan Lee 60s Fantastic Four, the Super Skrull. And forget about Secret Invasion and whatever nonsense they were peddling. This is Super Skrull. He's got the powers of the Fantastic Four, and he's got hypnovision. But this one, it's kind of downplaying it a little bit. The classic Thing arm with a little bit of Human Torch fist. Not really stretching, not really doing any invisible work. It's a little bit basic. It's obviously not the most exciting depiction of Super Skrull there's ever been. He's a character I have a great affection for. This probably isn't one of my favorite images. Again, it's sort of, you know, the novelty of this thing wore off real quick. I got all excited about these cards, and then the game was too much hassle, and the artwork wasn't... I mean, this wasn't matching your Mark Bagley Marvel Universe Series 4, or the Jim Lee cards, or the Joe Jusko Marvel Masterpieces. You know, these aren't quite matching up. Certainly not consistently. There's some of these cards I think are pretty good, but again, what is with all these cards of them just like lifting tech? This is very reminiscent of that War Machine card earlier. Not my favorite rendering of Thing. This one maybe, it's sort of a little bit hard to judge the length of those legs, but it feels like this is the stocky torso is more reminiscent of that school of thought that the Thing is only like 6 foot or just over 6 foot. I'm a bit of a heathen in that regard, that I quite like. Get ready for the soundbite, kids. I quite like a big Thing. I think the Thing should be really big. There's always that debate, like, you know, how close should he be to the Hulk? The Hulk should maybe be towering over him. I like it when they're similar sizes. I like Thing to be pretty tall. Maybe not quite as big as the Hulk, but certainly I enjoy that large Thing. Speaking of the Hulk, another Abomination. That's a better image of Abomination, I would say. Lifting a big rock, looking all kinds of mean. Look at that face, man. He's got the classic sort of like weird Finn style ears. mean face. Those weird ears. So I think Abomination is a Jack Kirby character. The design is probably Jack Kirby. And there's some revelation where, like, you look at the demon Etrigan, and it's, like, lifted right out of a Prince Valiant comic from a long time ago. I wonder if the idea was in the Prince Valiant thing, it's somebody disguising themselves to look like a demon, and I think they make like a fleshy mask out of chicken hide, chicken skin, and I forget what the weird sort of little flaps are, something to do with the legs or something, or is it a duck? Maybe it's like a duck skin or something. I don't know what it is, but yeah. So I wonder if that carried over in some of Kirby's designs, where he would keep that sort of strange fin-like ear. It's a little bit yeah, it's an unusual trait, but I like it in Abomination, and it's one of those rare compliments to the Marvel Cinematic Universe where he shows up in Shang-Chi and he's got the look. Because in the Incredible Hulk movie, they really made a mess of it. It's like just some sort of like bony head, no real features. I mean, like, why do it? Why do it? If you're gonna do these characters, take full advantage of it. Do the character. If you're leveraging the license, use the license. Create the character the way they look. I like that they finally got it done. I think, oh yeah, and Abomination was in the She-Hulk series, which I haven't seen, but I'd like to see that one. She-Hulk looks like it's got a little bit more comics going on in it than some of the others. And I just want these things to be comics. There's these other cards, which these are more like conventional trading cards. And there's some sort of like mission system or something. So this one, you get, I think it's 7 cards. You can see here's Doctor Strange. So this is the Infinity Gauntlet. I'll try to catch the light on that. Infinity Gauntlet. Nice little bit of gold foil. Always elevates a card. So these are like, there's some sort of, for the game, there's like a mission system or something where you got like chapters, and I guess you can play with your characters and perform some sort of mission. Again, I just never got into the game. You can't have Infinity Gauntlet without Adam Warlock. Very nice. The CG colors on these, not necessarily the best these characters have ever looked, but, you know, I appreciate what they're going for. Interesting choice to have Doctor Doom as one of the Infinity Gauntlet characters. He, certainly in like issue 4, which is the Gauntlet, it's Thanos indulging everyone in a fight. You go over to Secret Wars on Infinite Earths. That's secretearths.blogspot.com. You can read all the battles broken down individually. Doctor Doom certainly played a role in that. He makes a play for the Infinity Gauntlet himself, because classic Doctor Doom, he's always trying to look for the edge, trying to get the powers. You've seen him like steal the powers from Silver Surfer, the power cosmic. He was going for the Infinity Gauntlet, didn't pay off. Obviously his hubris was detrimental to the heroes and himself. I think he gets flung into space. There's a nice little brief team up between him and Thunderstrike, who was Thor at the time. Here's Galactus. That's another interesting one. Galactus and the cosmic guys get involved after the Earth heroes fail. You get all the sort of cosmic gods. I'm trying to think, like is the In-Betweener there? Infinity, is that? Man, I'm struggling. Let's stick to the cards we got. Here's Thor. So that's the Eric Masterson Thor, who later became Thunderstrike. Imagine that, spinning off into an original character who might be inspired by, but yeah, he briefly replaced Thor while Thor was learning a lesson. Looks a lot like classic Thor, but he's got the beard and the mask gimmick on the helmet. So that's generally how you can spot him. Silver Surfer, big player in the Infinity Gauntlet. There was that classic issue of What If Silver Surfer took the Infinity Gauntlet, because their big plan in issue 4, spoilers coming up, he hangs back. Silver Surfer hangs back. The heroes try to wear Thanos down, keep him busy, keep him distracted, wear him down, and they're all waiting for Adam Warlock's cue to send the Silver Surfer in, get him going as quick as he can, try to steal the gauntlet, which is kind of what they did in the movie. That's the gimmick. Take the gauntlet off of Thanos. Silver Surfer gets close, but he misses. He can't quite get it. So a Silver Surfer card makes sense. And then, of course, you got to finish with Big Man Thanos with the gauntlet on. A lot of, like, airbrush color going on there. It's not looking great. It's not quite coming together, but I appreciate what they're trying to do. I don't know. Yeah, I've seen much better Thanos artwork than that, but I'm sure I've seen worse. Again, I don't know if an artist is credited. That might have, I don't know how much that was a problem for the trading cards for a while. I'm sure I remember I learned Joe Jusko's name because of the Marvel Masterpieces, whatever year that was. And I don't know. Mark Bagley did the Spider-Man cards for a while, and I think he did Marvel Universe Series 4. The Kuberts had like a whole X-Men card set dedicated to them. I don't know, that's the good guys in Marvel Overpower. How are we doing for time? Maybe we'll wrap this one up. I don't know. Are we gonna do this again? Are we really? Nah, let's just plow ahead. Let's get this done. There's some interesting stuff in the villains. We gotta hit them up. Try not to destroy the box, which I've had since 1996. I got some old stuff, man. Acquired when I was a child. Kept it in good nick. Let's get through this. Now, this is ostensibly a villain set. It was nice to have, you know, you got your heroes, you got to have some villains too. But check this out. So the first villain on the rack is Deadpool. This card set's 95, so the mini-series would have been like 93 and 94. It's a couple of years before the Joe Kelly ongoing series with Ed McGuinness, which was like, I was already curious about Deadpool, because you'd see Deadpool art, and like in the X-Force #1, there was a bio. I got X-Force #1 with a Wolverine t-shirt from a department store. It was in like a clear plastic little box. You get like the t-shirt folded up, a comic, and there was supposed to be a packet of trading cards, but it's a trading card thing, man. Trading cards were everywhere. But it didn't have, I think it had 1 or 2 cards packed in. So then my mother or whatever calls the department store and is like, hey, what gives? The kid wants his trading cards. The trading cards aren't in there. What are you going to do? So they send like this massive delivery truck one day to the house. Like this, you know, this is a thing for like moving like massive furniture, fridges and stuff. Like this is a massive truck. Guy gets out, goes to the back, like lugs open these massive doors, and then comes out with a single packet of trading cards, brings it to the door. I was pretty excited all around. I thought that was pretty great. It was a packet of X-Men cards. I don't even think they were very good from memory. Didn't get Deadpool, but here's Deadpool. He's the first character in the Overpower. What is it? What's it called? Deadly Foes pack. The Deadly Foes, not of Spider-Man, just general. So Deadpool getting some airtime. Deadpool was a pretty big deal pretty quick, but I still think this is kind of a surprising for 95. He'd had a couple of miniseries, so it's not really that surprising. Here he is, holding up some swords, looking a little bit haggard. Again, it's that sort of early CG coloring, I think. I don't think this is actual airbrush or anything like that. I think it's computer-assisted coloring. Not quite coming together. More ambition, maybe, than technology and skill. A little bit of an action pose. This doesn't feel to me like a contemporary Deadpool. This is very much that classic Deadpool where he was a little bit more villainous, a little bit more aggressive, still had a bit of that Merc with a mouth vibe, because that's there pretty early. I think that's there in New Mutants 98 even, where you know, he's talking a whole lot of trash, but there's a little bit of an element of menace to him. He's a more dangerous character than we might think of him now, where the comedy is sort of, it's played for laughs more, and here's more of that sort of classic Deadpool. Guns blazing, he's all strapped up, very Rob Liefeld looking. He's got all kinds of gimmicks and weapons ready to go. That's pretty cool. Doc Ock, you gotta have Doc Ock. This is that sort of Eric Larson revised Dr. Octopus in a nice slick white suit, shades, tentacles are doing all the work. I like that. Again, probably not the most exciting image. A certain amount of consideration given for the text, being able to read the text and the stats and all that. They don't want to pull too much focus. You know, I don't know. That's okay. Now you get a whole heap of Doc Ocks. I mean, that's not bad. This one feels almost like it's got a little bit of the mad scientist element to it, even though he's not. I don't think that's a lab coat. That's his suit still. But you know, something about that pose and the little green highlights on the tentacles. It feels a little bit mad scientist. Again, not the most impressive renderings. I like this with he's sort of climbing across the city. Maybe he's scaling one of the tall buildings in New York City, maybe the Empire State Building or something. Reminds me of, or it might remind you of the Spider-Man 2 fight scene on the clock tower when he's got Aunt May, that kind of vibes. Classic comic stuff. It's kind of cool that he's going, lunging at you. He's coming for you. You could be next. Those tentacles are flying. They're keeping consistent with the white suit. Pretty basic stuff. Not really the most exciting cards. Obviously, you've got your game still. That's one of the major considerations. This is a nice addition. Hobgoblin. I quite like Hobgoblin. I'm thinking 95. This is probably the Jason McIndale Hobgoblin, which might be my favorite. I liked so he's like more of a mercenary who's using the Hobgoblin's gear to get himself an edge. I forget, was Jason McIndale also, I think he was Jack-o'-lantern, but classic Hobgoblin stuff going on here. Not the Ben, no, who is it? Somebody Kingsley. There were multiple Hobgoblins. I quite like Jason McIndale. In some ways, he's like maybe the least revered, but he's also maybe the most solid. And his most significant detail was that he made a pact with demons, I think during the Inferno storyline, and became possessed. And eventually, when that demon is separated from him, so for a while he's a real like demonic goblin creature kind of vibe, and then he eventually separates the demon from him, and that becomes Demogoblin, and you get another character out of it, another goblin. The goblin's got a little bit overplayed, and it's only gotten worse in the last, 10, 15 years. They've added to the goblin problem. But back then, that was pretty cool, and I thought Demogoblin worked. And I always liked, I like that Jason McIndale, they established a bit of a connection with Mark Spector, Moon Knight, which created something a little bit extra for Hobgoblin, more than just a guy who hates Spidey. That's kind of cool. That dual tone face with the green and the orange. The orange is the classic Hobgoblin colors. He's got the pumpkin bomb. I don't know if that's calling back to the fact that his gear is sort of based on Green Goblin's original gear, because Norman Osborn was dead. I think Harry Osborn, forget his status when the Hobgoblin gets going, but it's modified Green Goblin gear, so it's maybe a little bit of a nod to the Green Goblin, but also a little bit of a nod to Demogoblin maybe. I like that. Nice bit of storytelling. Maybe not the most convincing. Pretty basic stuff there. He's on the Goblin Glider, and he's cackling away. He's got his Goblin mask. I like the color balance of the orange and the dark blue, the pale sort of yellow face. Obviously very derivative of Green Goblin, but has its own sort of something. This something about this strikes me as a very sort of classic. The more tattered sort of there's a scarecrow element to it where it's demonic face, but it's a very like ratty looking hood. I quite like this. This is like a good Hobgoblin image to me, but it maybe alludes to the Demogoblin, who is much more tattered. Demogoblin is all. His gear's like all ripped and frayed. A little bit of a nod to it, maybe. Could be. Sabretooth, not a great Sabretooth card if you're really honest about things. We know who it is, we can tell, but like tied in close up on the face. I mean, it's sort of the composition is working with the text of the card, the function of the card, but not a very exciting image if I'm honest. Here's the one that makes the cover of the box, you know. Have you already forgotten the box? If you have, there's the box. Here's the card. The box maybe has slightly darker coloring, but that's a much better Sabretooth. If you want to have a lunging action shot, I mean, they almost work together as like it's like storyboard. Here's the close up of him lunging. Here's the front shot of him lunging. You know, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of interesting in a way. Get a little bit of sense of animation between your cards. I mean, it's not going to play out if you're playing the game because they're going to be shuffled, but fair enough. Here's one of those CG colored ones. A little bit awkward. He's a little bit flat-footed, a little bit bewildered looking. There's shots being fired. He's kind of a little bit hunched. He's looking around. He's not quite sure. It's not quite the powerful Sabretooth that I like to think of. I mean, this maybe harkens back to that. There's a period between his first appearances in Iron Fist where he's like a big, tough guy. Then he gets really weedy for a while in like X Factor and stuff. He gets a little bit scrawny and he's much more hunched over, and there's a little bit of that with the hunched element. Whereas I like the Sabretooth that's a big guy, looming over Wolverine, using the size against him. There's a Sabretooth looking a bit worse for wear. He's a little bit roughed up. I don't know, it's a bit of drama, but again, not my favorite look. The brick wall, I mean, it looks like he's moving through an environment that you don't necessarily associate with Sabretooth all that often, at least not at this time. It does make me think of, like, after the Mutant Massacre, he was in an issue of Daredevil that I always liked. I thought that was kind of cool that Sabretooth and Daredevil mixed it up. It's kind of like that. Or in Power Man and Iron Fist, when he was like, they thought he was like an urban serial killer, a slasher kind of thing. Cyber's back in the villain pack. You kind of expect it. There's the needle sort of fingertip nail squirting a little bit of that poison, that toxin. He's looking real smug. I mean, I guess that was one of his. There was a bit of that in the Wolverine stories where he knows he messed up Wolverine. He knows Wolverine's a little bit apprehensive about this guy. He can cause a whole lot of damage, and he knows it. And a villain who knows their hot shit can be kind of fun. Another Sabretooth, very CG rendered, but the face is maybe losing a little bit of character, but it's not a bad image. A little generic maybe. The chains are interesting. That kind of makes me think of, particularly around this time, the Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth, who had the chains. He didn't have this look. He had a modified thing with like that Magneto style sort of collar type thing. It's not really a collar though. It comes down here and it's got metallic elements. I don't know. Yeah, interesting though. I think it's just an action shot. He's just, you know, he's fighting with a chain or fighting somebody with a chain who has a chain. I don't know, not bad. Punisher's in the villain set. Now look, these cards are not necessarily adhering to any kind of theme of hero villain. We've already seen that in the hero box. There are plenty of villains. The main characters are what's adhering to the theme, and we've done that. We did that with the specific character cards. These ones, character cards and all that. They adhere to that. So, but it does kind of strike me as appropriate that the Punisher would be in with the villains. Okay, because yeah, Punisher ostensibly was a good guy, but he debuts in Spider-Man as sort of like a villainous, amoral type, and he's had all these periods. There is always the conflict with the Punisher. What he's doing probably is good, but how he's doing it is very dangerous. I don't like the way the character's been politicized by gun nuts, because really the Punisher is kind of, as much as he's that action movie power fantasy like Cobra, you know, the Stallone movie, it's that sort of 70s 80s gun toting, you know, anti-hero element. As much as there's the fun of that, there is also always with the Punisher the you know, the warning, the example that this could go real wrong real fast. And this guy is not having a good time. This is not a character you want to be. Like, this is not an aspirational fantasy. The Punisher is messed up. And the Punisher's the first guy who would tell you, I think. You know, he's just getting by. Another Bloody Mary. Again, not a great rendering, I wouldn't say. Maybe, I mean, like a guy like Jim Lee would make this look exciting, but I prefer the Typhoid Mary look. She's a bit more punk. More of like a punk Mad Max vibe with the Typhoid Mary, whereas Bloody Mary has just a whole heap of metal stuck to her. Big chunks. It's a bit less interesting. You get a couple of those. Here come the heroes in the villain set. Again, like I said, not necessarily adhering to that theme throughout, but Domino. That's pretty nice. That's like the classic X-Force Domino. More of a sense of a costume with the purple highlights, the big headgear, whatever that is, with the classic pale face, black eye gimmick, a little bit of color. Another long shot. I wonder, did Overpower like license certain characters individually or something? I can't imagine that's the case, but it is interesting they've picked some of these characters who I would not necessarily expect to dominate two separate starter sets, but Longshot chucking some little dagger style things, you know, he's got his eye flashing. You love him or you hate him. Well, hate's a strong word, but you might not be the biggest fan. I wasn't. This feels like a more of a classic Black Widow for this time period, at least. She's still got that Avengers bomber jacket. You can see the Avengers A symbol on the shoulder this time. But the hair is a bit thicker. The pose is pretty good. I love there's a lot of drama. She's lit from below, from the explosions. She's like flying through. Great action. Great sense of drama and, you know, momentum. She's in the middle of some kind of adventure. That's what you want. This is the Black Widow who can hang with the Avengers. And I quite like that. That's not bad. They put some effort in on that one. You get a couple of those. Again, there's a lot of these characters repeating between the two sets. Another Archangel. There's that blue and white costume that I was talking about. Famously, there's a red version that's maybe a little bit better known. But in the late 90s, he was wearing the blue and white, which worked pretty good. It's a good costume. Pretty simple. It's kind of corny to have the halo on the chest, but something about it works. The Archangel metal wings were like a cool upgrade. The blue skin is what you make of it. Again, this image is a bit wobbly. The face is a bit shonky. Maybe suffering under the digital coloring, the digital painting. But generally, you know, you get the idea. Another Sentry. This character, you know, I guess he was getting the push in 95. I definitely think of him as a character who, like, it's 95 and then he's gone. Forget it. Sentry's over. We tried. We failed. I think, from memory, he had an Iron Man action figure that was kind of cool looking. I mean, he was kind of a cool looking character. And I don't know if many people could tell you much about the story. From memory, I think even the comics, like, kept it a little bit vague. Maybe the Iron Man cartoon probably kept it pretty vague. Just a weird sort of spiritual new age kind of cosmic guy with a bit of magic thrown in. Weird character. We got another one of the ones from the other set. There might be some repeaters now, so probably good that we did this now rather than later. That Iron Man, I mean, you'd be happy if you only had one of these sets, you'd be glad you got that Iron Man, because that's a great image. I forget who the artist was back in those days. Len Kaminsky was involved. Here's one you'd know from the movies. It's Nebula with the bald cyborg. She used to have long hair and no cyborg gimmicks, but, you know, life's tough when you're a space pirate. Not the best image, but, you know, you can tell who it is. You got some skulls, I guess are they alien skulls? You know, you get the idea. Sure, why not? This is a better Black Cat. Little bit of a generic sort of energy vibe going on. I guess what's the idea there? That she's raking her claws She's got claws in her gloves. She's like raking them against the ground, getting some spark action. Gives you a little bit more bang for your buck. Better dynamic action pose. A little bit of like, you know, she's coming at you. She's coming out of the image. Some different planes. Pretty effective. You know, black catsuit bodysuit with the white trim, white hair. Gets the job done, I guess. Why not? Another Sauron. Wholly more of Bloody Mary. Black Widow with that crazy punk face. I don't know what that face is. That looks like somebody. What's her name? Is it Lily Tomlin? No, not Lily Tomlin. I can't think of her name. The one that's in the Chucky movies. The face reminds me a little bit of her, maybe. If she was doing a crazy face. Holly belong shots, we did that. Here's one we didn't do. Would have liked this in the heroes. Nightcrawler. That's a pretty nice little, interesting like CG texture generic background. I think there was the X-Men trading cards series 2 by Jim Lee, but I forget who did the colors, but he was in. They did a book recently about the trading cards, and in the notes he was saying he used wrapping paper, and that's almost got a little bit of the wrapping paper vibe. But that reminds me of a very generic Photoshop texture, just with the green, sort of like the neon green, yellow, toxic color. I mean, I guess it contrasts well with the dark blues and sort of highlighted blacks on Nightcrawler's costume. And Nightcrawler's a great character. That's a good one to have, but you know, not the best rendering, not a definitive image, but a good one. Here's another one that's going to get the kids excited. Here's Venom. The kids can't get enough of Venom in 1995 or in 2023 or any time really. Lunging, big, bulky Venom just in the city, having a whale of a time. Legit Venom with the spider symbol, although it's mostly obscured. And this is big tongue Venom. I'm getting a little bit nostalgic for the Venom who didn't have his tongue hanging out. Those were good times. Here's so you can see like the card back I've got on the left of your screen with Wolverine and Spider-Man kind of squaring off. They've turned that Wolverine into an individual card, which is not a great representation of Wolverine. I don't think you get into superhero trading cards because you want to see them with their back turned to you. At least not in that kind of pose. Maybe it's sort of like a cool arms folded or like claws up, looking at you kind of over the back of the shoulder kind of thing. But this is can you please look at me, Wolverine? A little bit of the spaghetti webbing coming in. That's something, but an action scene that's missing a compatriot, a companion piece needed. Domino, another Domino. What does she got? It's kind of the way her black eye is creating a little bit of a tangent with the background. It's kind of weird. It's not like a gun scope. She's breaking into something. She got like a little torch in her mouth. She's looking, I don't know, it's a little bit busy, but a little bit busy, and the image is just, the face is maybe a little bit flat. I don't know. It could use something a little extra. It's a little too cute, a little too tricksy. Not sure. Another Cyber. Not quite emphasizing his size, but getting across the metallic, you know, the suit and all that. I guess Cyber is having a moment. I don't remember. I thought he was kind of like done by 95, but I guess not. Another one of those War Machines carrying the big stuff, and a Loki just to finish off. And then you get your little mission cards here at the end. Maximum Carnage, definitely one of the big storylines of the 90s. I guess that was, Maximum Carnage was 93, so a couple of years removed, but still very legendary. You got the video game, obviously, extended its legend. It was, I like that. I like Maximum Carnage quite a lot. And I was, you know, because I was never like subscribed to comics or anything, and I didn't even reliably go to the store regularly. It was just kind of like get what I can when I can. When an opportunity presents itself, if I can convince mom, dad, whoever to just punt on an issue, get what you can. And I was like across different parts of town, just like as each month went by, I was just scrambling to get those Maximum Carnage issues. And I think over time I did manage to get them all. For a while I was like missing one or two. I got the Spider-Man Unlimited issues, part 1 and 13, like months apart, just by luck. Just happened to be the comic store, because those were never at the newsstands. I would get a lot of comics from news agencies. So that was a big deal. So here's Cletus Cassidy revealing himself beneath the Carnage symbiote as it recoils. A little bit of Carnage loves those jagged fingers and stuff. I believe this is an image based on something that was in one of the early issues. Could be mistaken. I think that is like, that's part 1 or part 2. Maybe when he's talking to Shriek in the first issue, something like that. This is part 4. That's Venom, obviously, worse for wear. I think that's the end of part 3, beginning of part 4, where he shows up at Peter Parker's apartment and Mary Jane answers the door. He's like on the ground like this, looking like all beat up. He's so desperate he's gone to Peter Parker's place because they had previously teamed up to beat Carnage. That was the only way they could beat Carnage. But this time he's been beaten up by Carnage, Shriek, Doppelganger. I think that were just 3 at that stage, but they pick up Demo Goblin right after that as well. So that's kind of cool. There was a funny inconsistency where he shows up at the Parker's apartment door. Mary Jane's like in her underwear and dressing gown. She's opening the door in the last page. Oh my god. And then in the next chapter, she's fully dressed and going like out for the day. So like some continuity error there with the timing of everything. A little bit dodgy. Here's the guy we're talking about, Demo Goblin. You can see, compared to Hobgoblin, he's got like, it's kind of a little bit frayed. They haven't gone all out, but like his gloves are ripped fingerless gloves. There's tears in the gloves up here. Very, very like noodly, scarecrowy, sort of ratty looking hood, ripped at the front. And of course, Hobgoblin, Green Goblin, they're wearing masks. But Demo Goblin, that's his face. So he's got like the venom tongue, the demon tongue. And there's lots of like, you can see the red sort of, I guess that's the insole of the rips. And it just gives it a little something extra. I like the Demo Goblin design, and I think the character was a lot of fun in it. And it put an interesting twist on it. And his whole deal was like, yeah, he's a demon, but he's punishing the wicked. He's after sinners, hates sinners, wants to deal with them, but his interpretation of what constitutes a sinner is obviously part of the problem too. Like he considers Spider-Man a sinner, so that's kind of interesting. Another sort of goblin-esque character who gets involved, Carrion. Carrion sort of, I'm trying to think. I think he was involved with the Jackal, who was Dr. Miles Warren, who was interested in Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker and responsible essentially for the Clone Wars and all this endless confusion of cloning in the 90s. Carrion, I forget, was he involved somehow? Did he get involved in the lab or something? I don't know. And he sort of had like a sickly, he was like a creepy sort of goblin-esque character where he'd float around spookily, but he would spread like, disease or whatever. It's sort of, it's kind of interesting. Just a generally spooky character. I forget what ever happened to him. I gotta look that up. Doppelganger, another good sort of. I mean, Maximum Carnage as a story was just full of like these weird combinations of things. In some ways, like the Carnage family, which was sort of like the Manson family of supervillains, because the whole thing is like, these are like bad guys. They're serial killers. They're going out causing trouble, murdering their way through Central Park and that kind of thing, which is good comics. You don't want that in real life, but it's good comics. They were like a weird sort of family where Doppelganger's like Shriek and Carnage's like kid almost. And you got like the weird sort of Demo Goblin Carrion. Just a weird pack of characters. But then the weirdness really extended to the heroes, because you got the natural combination of like Venom comes to Spider-Man. Okay, Carnage is back in town. We got to take care of this. But hey, he's got like all these other freaks with him. We're going to need more. Black Cat's involved. She's got a friction with Venom, so that's interesting. For a while, it's just them. And then you get like, they expand out into some of those other New York City characters of the time. Like Morbius gets involved. Nightwatch, who was kind of like a Spawn ripoff. It's like he and Morbius are like palling around now. And then it just keeps getting weirder, where like now Deathlock happens to be in town. Things are going nuts in New York City. Iron Fist shows up, he gets involved. Captain America gets involved. They rope in Firestar. It keeps. Oh, and Cloak and Dagger are in there from the start. Dagger sort of appears to die, comes back for the big comeback. Kind of like pro wrestling style. She makes the hot tag, gets back in after going down. She makes the comeback. She sells for a while. Just a really big, weird mix of elements. But Doppelganger was cool. He was a hangover from the Infinity War, I think it was. Yeah. So Infinity War, if you know it from the movies, was very different. It was like the Magus, which was the evil of Adam Warlock personified. He like generates all these evil clones of everyone. They're like doppelgangers. They're all evil doppelgangers. There's like and they're all like, you know, mean, jagged teeth weirdos. There was a Captain America one who had like his Captain America shield was like covered in, you know, like pointy bits around the edge. It was almost like a buzzsaw kind of thing. You had Mr. Fantastic had one where he had tentacle hands and he was all freaky. There was an Infinity Gambit. There were Wolverine. There were all these evil doppelgangers, but Spidey's was the only one that stuck around after the event. I think there was some sort of like magical intervention, and he was hanging out with Hobgoblin, I think, from memory. Or was it maybe it was Demo Goblin? I forget if they'd separated at that point. But yeah, so there was a whole thing. And so Doppelganger kind of continues beyond this event, that crossover event that just kind of like arbitrarily had heroes fighting evil versions of themselves. You get a new character out of it, which I thought was quite good. And I thought he fit in well with Maximum Carnage. It was a good time. Good time. And of course, the last Maximum Carnage card is Shriek. You gotta have a Shriek card, because she's like one of the main villains, causing all kinds of trouble with her sonic blasts and all that. For a minute there, you think she killed Dagger, but it all works out in the end. Isn't that exciting? So that, my friends, is the Marvel Overpower game. There's like some sort of checklist. What is that? Collect all the Overpower heroes and villains. So the starter packs, you can see some of the other ones. I've got, was it Mutants Unite? Had Storm, Rogue, Gambit, and Bishop. That's pretty good. Sworn to Protect, more mutants. Professor X, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Jubilee. That's a good one if you're a fan of the cartoons. Lethal Allies, Doctor Doom, Carnage, Omega Red, and Rhino. I mean, that would have been a good one to get. Heroes Assemble, Silver Surfer, Punisher, Colossus, and Beast. I would have loved that one. That's a good one. But I was pretty happy with these two. Of course, I didn't know what characters were in the packs before I got them. So at first glance, Sabretooth on the bad guy box, the Thing on the good guy box. That was a huge draw. But as a game, obviously, it's a little bit more involved and time-consuming than jumping on a Marvel Snap and playing a few of those. If you're watching in the archive, you should be able to find the Marvel Snap First Impressions. I dived in, I gave it a shot for the PC launch, and, you know, I don't think it's a great, you know, it's not like a 5-star game or anything, but for what it is, if you're into that kind of thing, it's not too bad. It's certainly a lot more engaging than I would consider the Overpower card game to be. And the damnedest thing was, so this happens in 95, and then I think like 12 years later, I'm in a Target looking at DVDs, and I see Marvel Versus, and it's really cheap for like a whole stack of cards, and I did it again. I damn well got sucked in again for these damn trading card games. I don't know what I was thinking. Is this my Achilles heel? Is it just the nostalgia for trading cards that sometimes gets the better of me? I mean, the good thing, if you were here watching the Disney 100 Wonders, thank you. We've had a lot of views on that first one, so that's pretty exciting. Getting some milestones checked off there, but the good thing about that was it was just they were incidental extras that came with like shopping. Whereas these you gotta like drop money on. It's no good. Speaking of the thing, here's the thing. Another relic, a relic of the days. I think this is the second thing action figure. Are we gonna do like? Are we just gonna keep doing these look at thing streams? Stop bringing in action figures. I don't know. Tell me. Leave a remark. What do you think? Is this fun? Is this good stuff? Because I'm enjoying reconnecting with those good old days of trading cards because they were a lot of fun back in the day. And I was today. I went insane. I was on eBay looking up trading cards. Like, what can I get? What can I get? I want to open up some packs. It's been decades, and man, nothing much going that I can afford. Too rich for my blood, and the deals aren't great. I was looking at some NBA hoops and stuff again, but I don't know. I don't know that I'll be opening any of those anytime soon, but I might dig out some more of my old trading cards. I've got a whole heap of trading cards that are just kind of like stored, but higgledy-piggledy, so maybe I'd like to sort them out. Maybe I'll bring them into the Hellhole and we'll sort them out together and we can just reminisce about the good old days as I arrange, because I got like all my cards mixed together just through the years of like moving around and stuff and reorganizing. I just for whatever reason the trading cards all just got lumped together, and some of them are in a binder, but I never had enough binders for all the cards that I had, because who wants to buy a binder when you could buy more cards and you can have more fun and learn more stuff? Because I always loved getting the information from them, and that's the big thing. That's what you don't get from Overpower. There's no comic book information or stats that you can really walk away with. There's stats for the game, but they're not quite, like I want to know real name, teams, powers, all that kind of stuff. I mean, admittedly, I read enough comics to probably know most of that stuff, but it was still nice to see it encapsulated. And they would always have like little factoids, maybe a little bit of a bio, something that, catches you up on where the characters have been. I remember opening one of the X-Men sets and finding Sabretooth was with the X-Men, and I think at that stage I hadn't had any issues where he was with the X-Men. I thought that's insane. Sabretooth can't be with the X-Men. Lo and behold, I got a couple of issues, and there he was. Actually, I don't think he lasted with the X-Men very long, as you would expect. Sabretooth isn't going to hang out with the X-Men. Inevitably, it goes a bit like the cartoon where he starts stalking Jubilee through the X-Mansion, but instead of Wolverine, it's Bishop that comes to his rescue. That's been done a few times. We'll get into all those kinds of things some other time. But yeah, what do you think? Marvel Overpower, yay or nay? I enjoyed the novelty of it, and I've got them, so they're nice to have. But I don't think I'm ever going to play that game. I'm just never going to learn those rules. It's too much. It's too much effort. It's too much work. Some of the images are nice. They're not even the best. They're not even the best for that, if I'm totally honest. I've got better looking trading cards. I'll dig them out sometime. Maybe we'll talk about it. Do you want to be here when I do that? Definitely help a brother out. Like and subscribe and follow and do all those things. If you're on YouTube, you got to subscribe. If you're here on Twitch, you can see me doing this live, because I did actually do this live, if you can believe it. I actually sat for an hour and a half talking about old chintzy ridiculous cards just into the ether. Anybody who wants to see it, well, I don't know. Yeah, if you want to be here, just ring those bells, ring the bell, get your alerts. Help me out, man. I clearly need it. Look at me, I'm struggling. What am I doing? I'm digging up old card games from 1995 that I never even played. Leave a like. Yeah, leave a comment. If you think this is interesting, like, tell me, because it's really, I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it for my own mild amusement. and for, I guess, posterity's sake. I'm sure somebody else has already covered Overpower, but I don't know. This is my take on it, and it just fits in. We've been playing Marvel Snap. We've been looking at those Disney 100 Wonders trading cards, so it just kind of fit in with what's been going on here lately. And And like MK Master called it on the Discord, this is the trading card arc. We're tapping back into those good old days of just like collecting these cards, the fun of it. Somewhere in here, I have a box full of cards that are just in all kinds of disarray, so I got to get them organized. And I'm a little bit worried because we got spiders in here, and a box full of cards is prime spider territory. I might have to check those out before I come in here. Otherwise, it's going to be a whole different kind of stream. We're going to have to put that in the horror category. That's enough from me. I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for hanging out if you did. I'll see you in the archive. Head over to YouTube, search for Hellhole whatever. Hellhole Street Fighter, Hellhole Vampire Survivors, Hellhole Disney, any of those kinds of stuff. You'll find the channel that way. You'll find some of the vids. Just check out what's on there. Check out the playlists. There's all kinds of stuff going on. There is a comic book playlist. There'll be some stuff in the description below this, so definitely check all that out. Thanks a lot, guys. I will see you again sometime soon. Godspeed, Spider-Man!